I'm here to tell you about a big problem. The sky is falling. Literally, there are satellites falling out of the sky and causing dangers everywhere. Last month, a 2-ton German satellite fell. In September, a 6-ton NASA satellite fell into the ocean off Seattle. They didn't do anything on the ground or any people, didn't cause any damage. But the real problem with this kind of space debris is the danger to satellites in orbit. In 2009, a dead Russian satellite hit an operating U.S. Iridium satellite that was providing telephone service for remote sites around the world. Destroyed it, cost Iridium a lot of millions in revenue in the future. But worse than that, it put thousands of pieces of shrapnel in orbit close to the Iridium satellites, and also it endangers other satellites in Earth orbit. This is a real problem because the space station actually has to maneuver a few times a year to avoid space debris. And if they don't get a warning fast enough to move that 100-ton object, the astronauts have to take shelter in a module on the space station to avoid that. So this is a real growing problem, and the concern is that if we have a couple of collisions of these derelict objects there, we could create tens of thousands of new pieces of debris. That would just make low Earth orbit unusable for any kind of satellites, astronauts, or space tourists in the future. So it's a real problem, and we have to do something about it. Congress held hearings after that Cosmos Iridium collision, and they heard expert testimony that said rockets can't solve this problem, cannot remove all this debris at a reasonable cost. But our company has a solution. We have a new spacecraft that we've invented that sails on the Earth's magnetic wind without using propellant. It uses only solar power. It is small, compact, maneuverable, can go to any place in low Earth orbit, or LEO, and it can go grab a piece of debris with a big net, bring it down below the space station, release it to land somewhere in the remote South Pacific where it won't cause any damage. And that way we can get rid of that dangerous debris. We figure that for not much more than the cost of a single space shuttle mission, we can get rid of all 2,000 tons of the large, dangerous debris in LEO. Our vehicles are controlled by simple little ground stations like the Air Force uses for Predator drones over Pakistan. We can have these ground stations at various places. One would be at our Boeing subcontractor in California, also at Space Command in Colorado, perhaps Washington, D.C. And we could even have a ground station here in Charleston to put South Carolina on the map for space operations. The market for our service would be the operators of about 400 active satellites in LEO, and also the International Space Agencies who want to get rid of this debris for safety. In addition, we could move small satellites to custom orbits, and we could support the Air Force and DoD and space surveillance. Our business model is to provide a kind of a trucking service in space. We'll move existing debris out of orbit. We'll get rid of dead satellites. We can even capture failed satellites once they've launched, take them back to the space station for refurbishment or repair, put them back on orbit for revenue production, and then we can collect the insurance money. In addition, we could also get raw materials from the debris in space and use that for making new structures in space. I'm Jerome Pearson, the president of Star Technology, which is our small business in Mount Pleasant. And I spent my career with the Air Force and NASA in this area. And I invented our spacecraft, and I assembled our team to put it together. Joe Carroll is 4 for 4 in space flights in this kind of vehicle. Eugene Levin is world-renowned in space analysis. And our legal person is an expert in treaties and international law. We also have very good congressional support. We want to create a new company to do the debris removal and create the corporate structure for our $80 million annual revenue that we calculate. There are competitors in the U.S., Europe, and in Japan. Various companies have proposed different ways of getting rid of debris using solar sails, tethers, lasers, and rockets. We've done an analysis of the business of debris removal, and we find that all these methods are about 3 to 30 times as expensive as our small vehicle. So we have a tremendous competitive advantage, and the NASA chief scientist, chief technologist is supporting us. We have a proven space vehicle concept. We have 4 patents. We've got $1.5 million in funding. We've just received a a new contract for $1.9 million on a 3-phase program. What we would like to do is get capital to match that first phase and build and demonstrate our vehicle. And we can do our demonstration in 3 years, have vehicles in orbit in 5 years, and we can solve that problem, clean up space, and stop the sky from falling in just 12 years. So, thank you.
That's great. That's a cool pitch. I like your expertise. Clearly, you understand that piece of it. I missed how you'll bring the debris down, like just from a technical standpoint. If you caught something in space and now you're making sure it lands a specific place on Earth, how do you do
I
that?
thought it was easier now to get into technical details, but now that you've asked. We have a new kind of vehicle. It's an electrodynamic thruster. What it does is it's like an electric motor in space. It has a conductor, and it uses the Earth's magnetic field. You run a current through that conductor from a solar array, and you get a force from the Earth's magnetic field. You align that conductor, and you can get the force any direction you want it to go. So you can change all elements of your orbit. This means you can go anywhere in LEO where you have a magnetic field and you have electrons you can pick up.
I can picture you're moving something in space, and let's say you gathered it together. You had things that now you need to bring back to Earth. How do you actually?
Well, actually, you can bring it back to Earth very easily. What you do is you just drag it down to below the space station and let atmospheric drag bring it in. If you bring it down to just a low altitude below the space station, it'll only have a lifetime of a few weeks and it'll decay naturally. Or we can throw it into the South Pacific so it won't hit anything. But it's probably better if we gather these things into a kind of a space junkyard where we can use the material and build new things out of it. Because there's 2,000 tons of aluminum up there. It costs $10,000 a kilogram to get it into orbit. If you have it up there already, we'd like to grab it, put it into a resource collection, and be able to make new things out of it to build giant structures that you couldn't launch from the ground. So we'd like to support that kind of operation as well.
Are you saying that you'll be able to recycle this material and manufacture in space?
Yes.
In the first 100 years?
100 years? You think long term.
The manufacturing isn't currently happening on the space station, right?
They've done some small experiments on things on the space station, but nothing very large scale. We would have to do that, but we have published papers addressing space manufacturing. There have been a lot of people who've been doing that. NASA's been looking at space manufacturing since the 70s, and there are plans of doing that kind of stuff. We would like to take the existing raw material, which is actually finished aluminum. Those are big aluminum tanks up there. And basically, it's finished aluminum, high quality stuff. We just melt it down and reform it into a new structure. Or use it for shielding, for space habitats and things like that. So, it's a straightforward method.
Who owns the satellite that you'd be working on? So you mentioned Iridium earlier. Who owns that satellite?
There is a company called Iridium LLC that runs that. They were the successor of Motorola. They have those satellites. They're going to put up a new set of Iridium satellites.
Let me interrupt you. Any of the junk, who owns it?
According to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, the country that launched the object owns it forever. It's not like the law of the sea where you can salvage something and get all the Spanish balloons. You've got to get their agreement to do anything with it. On the other hand, they own the liability of if anything happens on the ground, if it re-enters. The Russians have paid indemnities to Canada for a satellite that landed a few years ago. And so they would like to get rid of that liability. What we will do is we'll take that liability off their hands in return for letting us have it.
You said the country, not the company, correct?
That's right, the country.
So none of the corporations are really concerned after it gets up there. What happens? So the United States, if it happens to be...
Well, actually, the U.S. has put in rules that companies have to return their satellites to Earth within 25 years after their lifetime. So there is a law right now, and NASA promulgates this, and all of U.S. manufacturers have to follow that. Other countries are following suit.
So your relationship in the U.S. would be with the companies that launch the satellite, not
Yes.
the government?
What we could do is we could offer the company a way of getting rid of their old satellites without having to use extra fuel, because right now they have to allow extra fuel to bring it down after this lifetime is over. And they wouldn't have to do that. We could go up and they could use all their fuel, extend their lifetime, get more use out of it, and then when it's dead, they just call us and say, okay, take it down.
Thank
Being an engineer myself, I was fond of saying with enough time and money I can do anything. So with a project like this, how viable is it? How much money do you need to build a prototype and actually launch it and use it and prove that it works, and how long will that take?
We got a $2 million contract with NASA we're hoping for to build the components. We're going to have the next phase around $5 million to build and fly a demonstration model. Once we've done that, we've got to build about a dozen of them to do the job. Each one costs less than $10 million. So we're thinking that once we've had our space demonstration, we're ready to go, we only need at the absolute maximum around $25 million. And we think we can make a profit in 2 years after that.
With the recent budget crunch with NASA, is this something that you think NASA will now, could either one, resurrect the NASA program to clean up what was sent to space, or will it become more of a private industry now for outer space, for space travel?
It's going to have to be working with agencies and the international community because of the law of outer space. You have to get agreement from the countries that launch the objects. So the main owners of the junk in space are Russia and the U.S. We could do a bilateral agreement with the Russians, and that would get rid of 9% of the agreement going forward. We think the other countries would come along after that. And for the Russians, we can offer to get rid of their liability because they've got 8-ton zeniths up there that could come down and cause a lot of damage. We get those things, take that liability away from them, they're getting a value out of it.
How do you feel about partnering with other large companies that go after these kind of big contracts? Is that something you want to do? You know, a typical NASA supplier that has hundreds of thousands of employees.
We would prefer to build our company into a large company and do it ourselves.